king on the beat.
Yeah, yazi sizongoba. Greetings, sanbonani, dumelang afshini. Hello out there once again. It's your boy AK from the People's Podcast Network, back again with another segment of Real Talk with AK, the space where we speak the unspoken, challenge the silence and hold space for healing, And this evening's episode is actually close to the heart, because it's titled Mental Health Matters, the invisible struggles of our youth, Like this one is it's not just about stats and symptoms. It's about stories, our stories from Kagiso to any Kasi in the country. Because now personally I'm from Kagiso, I was born and raised in Kagiso, I meant to say. So yeah, we're gonna be focusing on the ones who speak up to the ones who suffer in silence. This is for us. Every day millions of young people put on a mask, not because they want to, but because we feel like we have to. Society demands it, The expectation is clear, You must look like you have it all together, even when inside you know that you are falling apart. And especially in the township, this pressure is even greater. There's this certain stigma around like mental health, that makes vulnerability seems like a weakness. To admit that you are struggling mentally is to invite judgment, gossip, and weakness, So even sometimes, like even exclusion, we tend to hide our pain behind a facade of bravado, laughter, and tough talk, But the reality is behind that mask, many of our youth are suffocating, The emotional weight of trauma, pressure, and insecurity is often more than they carry, We walk through life feeling like we are drowning, and we can't show it because the world will either pity us or criticize us, Mental health struggles are invisible in most cases, Hey, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining, For those who are just joining, we're actually talking about mental health, as you can see on the topic tag there, As I was saying, that like our mental health struggles are invisible in most cases, and in our communities, invisibility often means silence, because when you can't see something, yes, we can pretend that it doesn't exist, but it does exist, and it's time we start acknowledging it, because like the consequences of this masked reality are far-reaching. Many young people never learn how to deal with their emotions properly, leading to self-destructive behaviors, Like in most cases, the behaviors that we see around our townships, emakasana, they are mostly influenced by our mental health issues, because in most cases we are looking for a way to escape, I don't know if I'm making sense, but Uguti, there's those certain individuals, in our neighborhoods, at our respective neighborhoods, whereby you'll find that they tend to behave in a way, maybe they're violent. But then when you tend to dig deep, you find that, hey, this person, there's a lot of trauma, buried deep. And instead of addressing it, they tend to act out of character. Yeah, that's how I can put it, So like, many young people never learn how to deal with their emotions properly. As I said, that it tends to lead to self-destructive behavior, relationship breakdowns, and even thoughts of self-harm, Like the mask that we tend to wear to fit in becomes the very thing that isolates us from healing in most cases, So in this segment, we're going to peel back that mask, get real about the struggle, and start a conversation about what it takes to heal and break free from this cycle of silence. Like, how do we move forward as the youth, like, as the young adults of this country, like, how do we break the stigma that mental health does not exist emakazana, but we can say that majority of our youth, they are suffering, they are battling with silent battles. You can drop your comments on the comment section, and there's also a poll. Feel free to go and participate in it. The appreciation goes a long way, because one of our initiatives as Real Talk with AK, it's all about seeking practical solutions for the societal challenges that exist within our communities. So we have a space that's actually focusing on men in most cases. It's called the Machitari Kaufela dialogue sessions. So we sit down and discuss mental health issues and also advise each other as brothers in terms of how we can deal with our mental health issues. Like, we need such spaces. Like, when you look at anxiety, depression, and trauma, they are silent battles that many of our youth are fighting. But most of the time, we don't know how to talk about it. Like, these are the conditions that don't have visible scars. They are the ones that show up when you are alone in your room, your mind racing, your chest tightening, and unable to breathe. But no one knows because you still go. You still go out and smile. Anxiety often comes in waves. It's the feeling that you are constantly on edge, unable to relax. That's anxiety for you. Like, you're constantly thinking. You are not able to relax. Wherever you are, like, your thoughts are always running. Because, like, in most cases, majority of us, we are worried about the future, like making it before maybe our parents pass away, all those kind of pressure that, you need to provide for your family. And when you check the unemployment rate in this country, it's there. It's also contributing to our problems as the youth. So hence we see majority of our young people, filling up pubs and taverns and bottle stores and liquors, because of they are looking for a way of escaping. Like, the other day, there's a friend of mine, we had a conversation, and we were talking, and he was like, bro, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation whereby you are not working, and as soon as you go and open the bread bin and you wanna grab 2 slices or maybe 4 slices, make something to eat, they tell you, "Hore, hi, ke borotho ba bana," those kind of things. Like, there's those kind of households out there. So, like, those are some of the realities, like, that most of our youth members are facing in our neighborhoods. Unfortunately, that's the reality, because house husband, like, in most cases, people tend to think that auna value, you know, and they judge you. And on the other hand, like, when you check, depression is also equally insidious. It's not just about sadness, it's a numbing emptiness, a weight that drags down your spirit, making even the simplest tasks feel impossible. Like, just waking up, you wake up already and you are tired, you are defeated for the day. That's why you see how much in most cases when they wake up, you'll find them chilling in corners, the whole day. Because, like, at the end of the day, it drags down your spirit, making even the simplest tasks feel impossible. You wake up in the morning, but you feel like you are already defeated. You smile to fit in, while in Plomile Konini maybe there, just pushing a smile. But then inside, there's nothing left to smile about. Depression tells you that you are alone, that your struggles don't matter, and that no one will understand. Like, even when you think of telling someone, you're like, nah, they won't get it. Only to find that 85% of us actually relate to the same struggles, because, like, as I said, that unemployment usually is also a cause. It contributes to, like, mental health issues, especially in young people. And for those who are and like for those who are actually experiencing it, their reality is even darker because seeking help often comes with shame, the fear of being labeled weak, crazy, or broken. That's the stigma that I was talking about earlier on. That, like, how do we break this stigma in our townships, in our neighborhoods? Like, when someone, especially like young people and men in most cases, like, how do we break that stigma of saying that when someone actually confesses how they feel, or when they ask for help, you label them as weak or crazy or broken? Like, sometimes when you tell someone they need therapy, they'll tell you that, hey, I'm not crazy. So you're saying that I'm crazy? So, like, how do we break that stigma in our neighborhoods? How do we move forward? How do we break that stigma? Because, like, mental health is a problem in our neighborhoods. That's why, like, the usage of substances, illegal substances, let me put it like that, in our township is high. From Nyaupe to Crystal to what's this cat in Dash. Yeah. By Fagay Makaleni by user. It's because of that. So, like, how do we break that stigma, and we actually start seeking for help? I always tell, like, my friends that, guys, at the end of the day, you can go out and drink alcohol all night, trying to forget that, okay, you're actually going through this. But the following day, when you wake up, that problem is still there. So, like, how do we break that stigma? Like, and then on the other side, we have what we call generational trauma. Hey, thank you so much for the gift badge. And then, like, generational trauma, it can be physical abuse, emotional neglect, or witnessing violence growing up, because, like, most of us, when growing up, we grew up in environments that were violent. Maybe some of you were exposed to how your parents are abusing your mother, those kind of relationships, those kind of environments, they also contribute to our mental health issues, in most cases. Like, it can be the constant fear of never knowing when the next crisis will hit, or the long-term effects of growing up in a community plagued by crime and instability. Most of us, our communities, our neighborhoods, we know that, hey, crime, it's at its highest, So growing up around those environments also contributes to how your mental health, like how your mental health is affected in most cases, Because at the end of the day, trauma doesn't just affect your past, it also shapes your present. How? I don't know if you heard me, but that's kind of poetic in a way. As I was saying, that, like, in most cases, trauma doesn't just affect your past, it shapes your present. And if you don't deal with it, it will continue to affect your future. And, like, healing from trauma requires more than just time, it requires support, safe spaces. As I highlighted, that's why we have spaces like Machitari Kaufela, and we're in the process of also launching a space for women, called Basadiri Kaufela Dialogue Sessions under the People's Podcast Network. So there's a monthly sessions whereby the gents, we sit down, and talk about, like, how the month has been. We catch up, and then, yeah, like, we vent as a matota. So we're also trying to bring in, like, women on board to create their own space, because, like, there were complaints for, like, why is there only a space for men, whereby also women also have their own issues that they want to address, they want their sense of community. Because, guys, at the end of the day, it's up to us to actually build this kind of communities by ourselves. If we're not doing it, no one will actually do it for us. It starts with us. So it's high time we broke that stigma of saying ukuthi when someone, they vent about their feelings, when they tell you what they are going through, you judge them or you label them as weak or crazy, you know. And then on the other side, you know, there's also this invisible force called poverty. And this goes hand in hand with unemployment, you know, because like poverty is often the invisible force that holds so many of our youth hostage. Growing up in poverty means more than just financial struggles. It means dealing with insecurity, instability, and the constant worry. Sorry about that. And the constant worry about basic needs. It's the fear of not having enough food for the day, or the constant strain of trying to keep up with peers who may have more, you know. Because there's also that social pressure at the end of the day, especially over Barona, you know, whereby they wanna fit in, you know, they wanna move with what's trending, you know, the latest fashion trends. And sometimes you find that Uguchi, you are from a background inga afford in most cases, you know. And then you end up thinking that you don't fit in, you don't belong, and then those things end up affecting you mentally, you know. You know, some of us growing up, we were like that, majority of us, you know, wanted to fit in, you know. Taylor, you wanted to be there, you know. Like even up to date, that's how we live. Like that's how society is. That's one thing that contributes to majority of our mental health issues. The pressure of fitting in, you know. And about fair to ladies and gents, you can move at your own pace, you know. You don't have to compete. Once you start competing, you're putting yourself under unnecessary pressure, you know. And then boom, you are depressed because you feel like you're getting left behind, you know. Because like especially, you know, let me just say my age group, you know, I'm a 90s kid, you know. So lately you see that people you went to high school with, they are getting married, they are buying houses, they are buying cars. And then you start feeling like, hey, you're getting left behind because of Shangani, you know. While forgetting with life is not a race. You know, if we normalized moving at our own pace, all this kind of pressure will not exist, you know. That pressure of saying, you know, I wanna fit in because of I can see that my peer is driving this kind of car, is rocking this latest trend, you know. And then you go uyozifake ikolotweni because you are trying to compete with your neighbor or your friend. So we need to break that cycle, you know, and acknowledge that, you know, everything happens at its own pace and time, you know. And it's for a reason sometimes. They say delay is not denial, you know. And earlier on, I spoke about substance abuse, you know, substance abuse, you know. Because at the end of the day, drugs too play a major role in this crisis of mental health, you know. When life feels like it has no meaning, most of our peers, like young people, tend to turn to substances as a form of escaping, you know. The feeling of euphoria from a high can temporarily numb the pain, but in the long term, it makes things, hey, kaboom. It makes them big problem, you know. What starts as means of you saying, nah, I'm trying to cope with this phase I'm going through, you end up being addicted. Like I think most of us, if you are from if you are from the township, Ikasi, you might have a friend whose life turned out like that, you know. And I pray and hope that you know, they recover, you know. Because like, you know, one thing about drugs is they offer a sense of relief, you know, and many of us fall into that trap of addiction because it provides a brief respite from the overwhelming pressure that we are facing in most cases. And then the cycle of substance abuse perpetuates trauma, and keeps many stuck in a hopeless cycle, unable to break from our mental health struggles, And then these drugs start becoming a coping mechanism for a world that doesn't understand or offer real solutions. Like in most cases, we judge people who use drugs, and we criticize them. But have you ever stopped for a sec and ask yourself, like, how did this person get here? Like, how did they end up there? Besides from saying to someone, they love things, they love experimenting. Because once you start looking deep, you can see that, hey, something was wrong, So, like, instead of judging, maybe you should ask, you should normalize just talking to people and asking them, like, Uchi, Prayam ufike njani here, how did you start using drugs? What led you to start using? I personally have had that privilege of whereby people who use have shared their stories. That's why you tend to see Uguchi, like, we judge people without knowing the full story. You find that this person, their background, they are where they are because of they were trying to escape from something. It begins as a form of escaping. You forget and forget and forget and forget. You become hooked for life. And then future is ruined. Like most of us have friends like that, Now, even personally, I've even lost friends who have succumbed to drug overdoses, and may their souls rest in peace, Like, also the other thing is dysfunction in families and communities only amplifies the suffering. Like, many young people are growing up without emotional or psychological support because the system designed to protect us has failed us, from absent parents, fractured families, and toxic relationships. Create an environment where love and support feel like luxuries, This dysfunction feeds into mental health struggle, making it harder to break the cycle, Like, these issues are often compounded by the lack of access to mental health services, especially in neighborhoods. Who can proudly say that like, in their neighborhoods there's more than 3 mental health facilities whereby as a young person you can go and make use of them? It's even a privilege for a township or a kasi to have like a mental health facility, It's a privilege. Like, these issues, as I said, they are often compounded by the lack of access to mental health services. And it makes it even more difficult for us as youth to find the support that we desperately need, because this is a multi-layered issue that calls for an equal multi-layered solution. One that starts with listening, understanding, and acting to break the cycle of poverty, drugs, and dysfunction, Like, the systems that should be supporting us as young people, from schools, communities, social services, they are often broken in our neighborhood. Funds are looted. In most cases. Thank you, Osnolwazi. Thank you, Osnolwazi. As I'm highlighting, like, our schools, communities, our social services, they are in a state of decay, whereby you can't even find proper assistance. You have to go outside of your neighborhood to find assistance. And then when you come back, you are also exposed to those conditions that led you there the first time because of when you go back, you're going back to the same environment, and there's no program that you can say I'm attending around the neighborhood that can keep you busy. Like in South Africa, the reality is far from ideal, you know. Many schools are underfunded and under-resourced with little to no mental health services available for students. You see, for my generation, especially, I went to school in a public school, you know. And I can tell you right now, mental health, next. You can't even find like a school psychologist or a therapist in school, you know, in a public school. Such things don't exist. And then you wonder why you talk about that class in a mistress, why. Only to find that they act out of character because of maybe the background that they are exposed to, the environment. It's not sharp, you know. So also public schools, they need proper funding, you know, because I think we once highlighted it on one of our episodes on the People's Podcast Network, Real Talk with AK, you know. It's available on YouTube and across all podcast streaming platforms. We were talking about mental health. That, you know, what if our public schools had like maybe a psychologist inside the premises, you know? Maybe we'll see a change in behavior, you know. Because when you check, teachers are not trained to identify the signs of mental illness or trauma in most cases. You go to UJ, you attend varsities. But to identify signs of trauma, I personally think that when you're a teacher, as an educator, you should also having like also a qualification maybe in psychology should be compulsory, you know. But it's debatable. So you can feel free to request if they actually have maybe something you want to input, you know. I'll actually accept you to the space, you know. Because like when an educator, you should be able to spot these things that no man. Instead of me chasing Tabo out of class, why don't I sit down with Tabo and try to find out what's happening, you know? Sit down from not an educator, maybe as a professional psychologist. That's why I'm saying it should be compulsory when you're a teacher to also have a qualification in psychology, you know. And you know, as I said, like in most cases, this leaves many young people feeling invisible, misunderstood, leading to a further deterioration of our mental well-being, you know. Community support too is lacking, you know. While families and neighbors may offer love and care, the mental health infrastructure simply isn't there. Young people are left to fend for themselves with no real outlets to express or process our pain. The only outlet that's there is the pub. You know, we fill these bars and pubs because we're trying to forget. Those are the only facilities that are available to us as youth. So how do we break that stigma? Like, the stigma surrounding mental health means that many young people internalize their struggles, believing that they are the only ones going through it. And you're not alone. Rebapaya, spapaya, yo. Skala spaningi. Life is very good washing. Eh. And like in most cases, this isolation only makes the situation worse as it leads to feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, Mental health support should be as accessible as any other form of health care. But right now, it's still out of reach for too many. This is why we need to invest in mental health resources in our schools, community centers, and public health systems, Like it starts with us. I did say earlier on that we need to be creating spaces whereby they facilitate dialogues that encourage people to open up, because when you talk about something, after talking about it, I know maybe you feel like there's a huge burden that has been lifted off your your shoulders, I meant to say, But however, without systematic change, many young people will continue to suffer in silence. It's not enough to acknowledge that mental health is important. We also need to ensure that support is available where it's most needed, Whether that means building stronger school support systems, providing access to affordable therapy, or creating safe spaces for young people to talk and heal, we must address the gaps that currently exist. The solution is not just about talking about the problem, but about building a system that works for our youth. Sorry about that. I'll be back in a sec. Sorry about that. As I said that, the solution is not just about talking about the problem, but about building a system that works for our youth. One that actively supports their emotional, mental, and psychological well-being, So now, personally, I'll talk about my township, Kagiso, based in Mogale. The struggle with mental health is no different, Many young people are facing the same pressures, the same invisible battles, as they try to navigate the complexities of life. But there's power in our stories, and when we share them, we start to heal. Because now, myself, I've seen it personally happening, I've seen it personally happening. I've seen this firsthand at the Magitari Kaufela dialogue sessions, where young men who have never spoken about their struggles have started to open up, Because like we have had these sessions where tough guys have broken down in tears because they finally found a safe space to release their pain. It's not weakness, it's strength, This story is for me personally, raw, real, and sometimes painful. I believe that they are the stepping stones to healing, Because everything we do has to have a first step that you take. So once you start taking that first step, which is talking, you talk about it, you find that, or you discover that, okay, you're not the only person going through this, Solutions start flowing from different angles. You deal with this thing, Because at the end of the day, giving up, suicide, substance abuse, come on, guys. We can do better. We can do better. As I'm saying that, life is washing. But the rope and pills and alcohol is not the way to deal with them. You're only making the problem worse. Now, I always say people should drink to celebrate. And there's no way you can be celebrating every weekend. What is it that we are celebrating every weekend? Because I think, Fandare, it's Saturday, 75% of Bacha right now, they are pegged in pubs. Even next week is gonna be like that. So what is it that we are exactly celebrating? And where do we get the money for these things? Because economy we are crying about unemployment. Even the unemployment rate just went high, but we're always going out. Hence, I'm saying that you can't be always celebrating. That's why I'm saying there's something that we are running away from. And if you keep on running, kuba inkinga, you know. But, you know, just as much as, you know, we have challenges as a neighborhood, especially when it comes to mental health, substance abuse, you know, the beauty of our neighborhood as Kagiso, like many townships, is that it's a community that stands together. Yes, we do have our struggles, you know, but there's always that sense of unity. But, you know, one thing about unity is that sometimes it can mask deeper issues, you know, because we've got younger people walking around with so much trauma that it spills over into their daily lives, in their relationships, at school, or even with their families. When we don't talk about mental health, we allow these issues to grow unchecked. The emotional side, the emotional wounds become part of the culture, passed down from generation to generation. But if we start talking about it, sharing our stories, supporting each other, we can change the narrative, guys. This thing is simple. That's how we break the stigma. Earlier on, I did ask a question of asking Nguguchi, how do we break that stigma of when they vent or when they talk about what they are going through mentally, you label them as crazy. How do we break that stigma, guys? Let's talk, guys. That's cool, man. You know, our young people in Kagiso, we are not defined by our pain. Despite the challenges, we are resilient, you know. The creativity I see in the township, from music to art to entrepreneurship, it's a testament to that resilience, because at the end of the day, we can't ignore the pain, but by acknowledging it, we give our young people the opportunity to heal, to grow, and to thrive, you know. This is not just about surviving, it's about thriving, you know. So in this next segment, I'm going to be sharing some of the things that we have been embarking on, you know, as the People's Podcast Network, you know, because this is where we've gotten to be exposed to say that, you know, just as much as that we have our challenges that we are facing, there's spaces, you know, that are actually on focusing on such issues, you know. So in this segment, I'm sharing stories from the heart of Kagiso, you know, a place where pain and power coexists, where healing is possible through the collective strength of community, you know. So let's talk about art for a sec, you know. Art has always been a form of expression, a way for people to deal with their emotions when words alone can't capture the depth of their feelings. For many young people in townships, especially those involved in music, poetry, and other forms of creative expression, art becomes a lifeline, a way to cope with their mental health struggles, you know. The pain, the frustration, the heartache, it all comes out in their lyrics, their poems, and their art, you know. I've seen artists like Abo Pet Boy Mo, Abo Uplek, Abo That Boy Fly, Abo Black Sun, you know, at the Unspoken with Sunday Soul Sessions. It's a space that we host, you know, whereby you find that there's poetry, jazz, you know, local artists coming to showcase, you know. And that's why you see that, you know, art is a form of coping with mental health struggles, you know. Like, the creative soul is often the one that is most in tune with its emotional and psychological struggles. Yet, it is also the one that finds solace in transforming pain into something beautiful. You know, music in particular has a powerful role in this. Emakazana in the township, in our neighborhoods, genres like what's this genre? Trap soul, jazz and reggae are not just about rhythm and melody, you know. They're about survival. Because these genres allow us as young people to communicate what we feel in our souls in ways that words alone might fail to express. You know, I not personally, you know, I always tell people that, you know, music in a way for me, it's a love language for me because sometimes it does help me to communicate when I can't find the right ways to express myself. You know, there's always a song that expresses how you feel. So what's your favorite song? What's that one song that you know with a Mazkal? Once I play this song, you know, I know that everything is gonna be alright. You know, these genres, as I said, that you know, they allow us as young people to communicate what we feel in our souls in ways that words alone might fail to express. Poetry too gives voice to the silence that many young people feel. Spoken word sessions like those at the Unspoken Words movement, it's a space, you know, for artists, you know, in Kagiso, based in Kagiso, different creatives coming together, you know, on a monthly basis to showcase their art, perform, express themselves, you know, connect, network, you know. It's basically a hub for creatives, from photographers to artists to sculptors, different, yeah, it's a community of it. Because us as the People Podcast Network, we believe in creating communities for ourselves. We don't believe in waiting for the system to come and create for us. Because if you check, growing up, we always had that sense of a community because of the adults, just as much as they were coping with their own mental health struggles. They never failed when it came to creating safe spaces for us, you know, to come together growing up. I think most of us, you know, that's how we met our friends. But such things have now gone out of style in our neighborhoods. You know, it no longer takes a village to raise a child. You know? When I go next door, Kasem calls. Tell me if I'm wrong. You reprimand the child from next door, the parents come running, asking you that, hey, is this your child? Why are you talking to my child like that? While you can see that, hey man, Mara, this child is off ramping, yeah, man, you know, and you're trying to bring back that direction. What the heck? You know, as I said, like these sessions at the Unspoken Words movement, they are essential in allowing artists to release the emotions that might otherwise remain bottled up. So in this segment, I'll be talking about how the creative process can be a powerful outlet for mental health struggles and why we need to support this form of expressions as tools for healing. Like, this is where you come in as a community, you know. You support this kind of spaces, you show up, you attend, you know, because by doing that, hey, you're not just supporting the person performing, you find that, hey, it goes beyond that, you know. You find that it goes beyond that, you know. Because, you know, it's not just about making art for art's sake. It's about understanding the connection between creativity and mental health. For many artists out there, the act of creating is therapeutic, you know. It's a way to process trauma for most artists, you know. I've seen this firsthand because I spend most of my time around artists, you know, in the neighborhood. And that's why you get to see that, you know, these people, when they are focusing on their craft, they are expressing what they are going through. That's why I always say, when you want legit music, authentic music, always go for upcoming artists. You know, it's always dope to discover upcoming artists before they blow up and they start focusing on what's trending in the mainstream, because on the come up, they are talking about their real struggles, expressing how they feel. That's how you get to connect with artists in most cases. Like, the creative process offers young people an alternative to destructive coping mechanism like substance abuse or violence. That's why, Harehola, you found that we had more than 10 soccer teams. Ekas. But these days, such things are no longer there. And then we go and vent way to the bottle, to Nyaupe, to crystal meth. Because of like those extramural activities we grew up, they were there. There was athletics, whereby you will be jogging. But now, Tololo, they are in the state of decay. So now it becomes a challenge for us. So how do we bring back that sense of community? Because I think that when we grew up, you grew up whereby you will maybe after school link up, connect with maybe your peers. At this day and age, when was the last time you saw a child playing hide and seek? Yeah, life has changed, I know. That's why I was asking Uguti, how do we bring back that sense of community, that sense of unity? Because personally, I believe that if we can bring back that sense of unity in our neighborhoods, we can start breaking this mental health stigma that exists in our communities. Because when you are in these spaces, you build connections with people, and sometimes these connections end up being outlets whereby you are able to vent to, Sorry about that. I dropped something. Hey. Like, guys, it's high time. Like, we need to ensure that our creative communities are not only supported in their craft, but also in their mental health, journey. Because faith plays a significant role in the life of many young South Africans. And for some, it's the foundation upon which they build their resilience against mental health challenges, Many believe that faith can provide a sense of peace and hope, even in the most difficult circumstances. But there's a growing need to acknowledge that prayer, while powerful, is not always enough when it comes to mental health. Too often, people tend to faith, as the sole solution, dismissing the idea of seeking professional help or therapy. Yes, you can go to church, but you still need to attend therapy sessions. You still need to sit down with a therapist and dig beyond Uguti. Why are you like that? Like too often, people tend to faith as the sole solution, dismissing the idea of seeking professional help or therapy, as I said. This mindset can be dangerous as it prevents us as young people from accessing the support that we truly need to truly heal, Like, while faith is an important aspect of healing, it must go hand in hand with practical interventions. I did say earlier on when I started that, on this platform, we are all about seeking practical solutions for practical societal issues that exist within our neighborhood. So, the practicality of it is that you need to attend therapy. You can also, if you are a brother, you can also join our mental health sessions, the Magitar Kaufela dialogue sessions. Just send me an inbox if you are interested, and then I will take it from there, because we meet on a monthly basis, and it's not only about mental health, we also have other initiatives within the space, such as the stock fair, whereby we support each other, financially, you know. Brother, we have brothers there, you find that they don't work, they're unemployed, but at the end of the day, we support each other. You find that I'm employed. Month end, okay, I'm like, okay, bro, sometimes it takes the pressure, because for us guys, sometimes it's hard for us to even say, hey mom, it's embarrassing for Amajita Pai. Something gents hardly confess, like, as I said, that while faith is it's like an important aspect of healing, it must go hand in hand with practical intervention. Therapy, counseling, and medication are all important tools that should not be ignored or belittled because of the belief that prayer will fix it. Umtandazo will fix everything. Hey, you still need therapy. There was this favorite uncle of mine who passed on to the next life. May his soul rest in peace. He used to say to my cousin all the time that, you can go to church and say praise the Lord day and night and worship, but if you are not taking practical steps to your problem, nothing will change. Because at the end of the day, uNkulunkulu usiza umuntu ozisizayo. When you believe, you also need to follow through with practical steps. Because in many cases, the mental health struggle that young people face, they tend to be complex, and they require more than spiritual healing. They require holistic care. So in this next segment, we'll explore the intersection between faith and mental health, and how can we create a more balanced approach to healing, one that honors both spiritual and psychological needs. What are your thoughts on that? Like, how can we create a more balanced approach to healing, a space that honors both spiritual and psychological needs when it comes to mental health? Because at the end of the day, they go hand in hand, So that's the question for this segment. Feel free to drop it under the comment section. Let's engage one another, because I've been talking for a while now. I think I started at 6. Right now it's 8. Yo, kunin. Kurevele. People are just viewing, no gifters. Come on, let's support the space. Dialogue sessions. You can also invite your young nephew, your young brother, your timer, to come join us, because it's a space between young men, And then after these sessions, we always prepare a young meal. We chill, we eat, it's fun, it's So as I said, that on this segment, we'll actually explore the intersection between faith and mental health, and how we can create a more balanced approach to healing, one that honors both spiritual and psychological needs. When we talk about mental health in schools, we are not just talking about emotional well-being. We are talking about survival. Like, for many young people, school is where the stress begins. It's the pressure to perform, the fear of failure, the anxiety about fitting in, the constant worry about our futures. And this is something most young people go through once they reach the tertiary level. I've seen this firsthand, That's why you'll find that most young people who are in varsities, I can say close to 60 to 70% of them, they are going through something mentally. They are battling with a mental health struggle. And one thing about varsity is this kind of spaces exist. But in most cases, because we are from townships, hey, we view such spaces like, hey, they'll say I'm crazy. You play fair. You play fair. Rather, instead, you go out and party throughout the week while neglecting your studies. You know, when I was still in varsity, we had cases whereby students were committing suicide. I actually have a friend who committed suicide 2020, and may her soul still continue to rest in peace. You know, she was a close friend, you know, and she was still in varsity doing final year, you know. Hence, I'm highlighting that because sometimes, you know, people think that just because life is you are living, only to find that, that's where the struggle is, you know. Students are just smiling out there, but majority of them, they are depressed. And we need to be encouraging them to seek professional help, not looking for ways of escaping. So, what happens when schools don't have the resources or the knowledge to deal with these challenges, especially township high schools? Because in most cases, we don't have the resources, you know, or knowledge to deal with these challenges. That's why earlier on I was saying that when you're a teacher, when you are studying teaching, psychology should also be a compulsory module, you know. Because you just being there focusing on performance, the marks, reaching the records. When Sfiso or Chabo misbehaves in the class, you're like, Chabo, go outside. You call the parents and then it stops there. That's not really intervention. You need to be able to sit down now with Sfiso or Chabo and break it down and try to find Uguti. What's the main cause of Chabo behaving like this? You know? So, like, that's why I was asking that questions, you know. Because when the teachers are overwhelmed, the guidance counselors are overworked. Even the guidance counselor, they are for private schools in most cases. If you grew up in the township, guidance counselor, that one I can challenge you. We can debate it all night. There's no such thing as a guidance counselor in high schools. The only guidance counselor you have is your teacher. And in most cases, I don't know if things have changed now, because it's been a while since I've been in a classroom at high school. But yeah, our generation in most cases, such things were not there, you know. And I think I can confidently say even now, majority of township schools, such things do not exist. That one we can talk about it all night, but you can't even name one school that has a guidance counselor in the township. Drop one name, G. And also the curriculum doesn't address mental health, you know. That's why many young people are left to fend for themselves, struggling in silence, you know. Mental health issues in schools affect every aspect of a student life. It affects their ability to concentrate, their performance in class, and their relationship with others. Schools should be safe havens for learning, growth, and support. But too often they become places of stress, anxiety, and emotional breakdowns. Then you wonder why bullying is high in schools. Some of you are still pissed at your bullies up to date. You know, when you see your bullies, you feel triggered in most cases. But you have never really sought help. That's why how about that person who used to bully you, you feel triggered, you know. Instead of sitting down, you know, and actually now having that conversation with that person who used to bully you. And that's why you get to see which maybe this person growing up, you know, they were going through a lot of things. So that was their way of, yeah. So at the end of the day, you know, you also need to forgive. You also need to forgive, you know, because when you don't forgive, you build bitterness in your heart, and bitterness consumes you mentally. Now, I always say, like, hey, I'll never let anyone dictate my mood, you know. Even if maybe you once bullied me back in the day, I see you, I'll greet you even with a smile. And like, what's wrong with this guy? Does this guy want to kill me or what? So, in this segment, you know, we are going to talk about how schools can become better equipped to deal with mental health issues, from introducing mental health in education into the curriculum. What's your thought on that? Don't you think that our curriculum should actually introduce a subject that actually focuses on mental health as a whole, maybe from high school? Imagine how like our society will be like walking around amongst young people who are healed, you know, who have strong support systems. Like, we need to create school environments where young people can talk openly about their struggles without the fear of judgment, you know. In our communities, elders and parents play an essential role in shaping the lives of young people. But we are disconnected because many of our elders don't fully understand the mental health challenges that young people face today. You know, there's always that joke that I see on Facebook whereby you'll find that they say that, okay, someone tried maybe to commit suicide and then they survived. And then the therapist said to the family that you should stop treating this person like this. And then when they come and tell you that food is ready, they're like, hey, Chabo, ukudla kuredi lapho before zbulala. You know those kind of jokes. But like we joke about some of the reality, it's a norm, you know. Because like majority of our parents or adults, grown-ups, they don't fully comprehend mental health. Such things to them, they don't exist, Baba. You gotta begezela. When you're indoda, you gotta begezela. When you're a wife, mkonje bathini. Mosadi o tshwara thipa ka bogale. That's their motto. That's how they grew up. So we need to break that stigma, you know, because at the end of the day, these things also contribute to mental health challenges that we are facing as young people, you know. Like, the traditional approach to emotional struggles was often get over it or don't talk about it. However, as we have seen, this approach doesn't work for mental health. As a parent and our parents, we need to understand that mental health issues are real and need to be taken seriously. It's not about being weak, it's about being human. So in this segment, we'll discuss why it's crucial for parents to be educated about mental health and how they can support their children by being more understanding, empathic, and open to professional help. Parents, I'm talking to you now. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you, parents, Like, parents, where do we go from here? What are the steps that we can take as individuals, communities, or society to address the mental health crisis amongst young people in our communities? Like, how do we address this disease in our neighborhoods? Because personally, I feel like once we can address this first phase, we might see a decline in the rate of illegal substance usage, As I said earlier on, Uguchi, like, we judge users of nyaupe crystal meth saying that laba balashile laba benzini without fully comprehending what led them to use, what led them to end up there. Because at the end of the day, we don't have the same backbone. It's a privilege for me to have grown up in a generation whereby we were exposed to these things, but I still managed to avoid them, to maneuver them. I'm not saying I'm perfect or anything. I also have my own battles when it comes to mental health struggles, But by talking about them, you are able to navigate life. Because, like, you can't go through life alone. You need to talk about your struggles. When you talk about your struggles, you find that the next person is also going through the same thing you're going through. Like, we need to show our young people that it's okay to struggle, guys. That thing of you when you are going through something, you shut down, you lock yourself in your room, and then the kids in the house, they are asking, what's happening with mom? What's happening with dad? Why are they behaving like this, man? They are moody. Hey, as a parent, you need to cry. Here's a question. If you are someone who's born in the 90s generation, apart from seeing your parents crying in a funeral, have you ever seen them cry? Has your parent ever cried in front of you? That's a question I'm laying to you, That's why I'm saying that we need to show our youth that it's okay to struggle, but it's also okay to seek help. Like, we need to teach our young people that their mental health matters as much as their physical health. And secondly, we need to create more spaces for healing, whether that's through art, therapy, or open conversation. We need to provide young people with the tools they need to process their pain and start the journey to recover. Mental health is not a destination, but the way, guys. It's a lifelong journey. It's a never-ending process. I can tell you right now that I started a podcast as someone who was suffering from mental health anxiety. Sorry, man, I meant to say social anxiety. And up to date, it's something that I still struggle with, but seeking help helps me maneuver in public settings. I have my coping mechanisms that are healthy. They don't cause me to self-destruct, And I'm not talking about alcohol. Guys, you need to try maybe such things as hiking. Wake up and go do something like bungee jumping. Be adventurous and see what that does for your mind. So, what do you do when you feel stressed as a parent? And I also asked, have you ever cried in front of your child? Apart from your child seeing you at a funeral crying or at a wedding, tears of joy. Like, have you ever really cried in front of your child? That's why I was saying that mental health is not a destination, it's a lifelong journey, and it's one that we need to work together. And lastly, we need to build a culture of care, a culture where mental health is treated with the same agency and importance as any other issue. Only then will truly begin to see change. And it's only then will our young people be empowered to heal and thrive. Because that's where we start, guys. By creating spaces whereby young people can actually express themselves. Not that when someone they tell you about their problem, you're quick to tend to be defensive. Or when a young person tells you, Oguchi, like, hey, you did 1, 2, 3 to me, I did not like this. You are defensive. You are on attack mode. Let's break that stigma, man, as society. Because, like, it's only then we will truly begin to see change, and only then will our youth be empowered to heal and thrive. And with that being said, guys, yeah, I've been talking. I think I have spoken and spoken and talked and talked and talked, because Vela Real Talk with AK social media live segments, But you can actually go and check out the full episode that we did on mental health on YouTube and Spotify, Apple Podcasts, just to name a few podcast streaming services where you can listen to the podcast. We actually did interesting episodes around mental health, and we had the privilege of sitting down with people who are mostly affected by mental health. There's an episode for alcohol and substance abuse, and then there's 2 episodes for mental health. So you can go check them out and let us know what you think. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who has been watching, who tuned in, to listen into Real Talk with AK, I think this evening we touched on so much, but this is just the beginning, because mental health matters, It's up to us to continue the conversation and take action. So, if you started with me and you've been listening to this far and feeling like you're not alone, just know that you are not. Reach out, talk to someone, and never be afraid to seek help. By seeking help, you're not weak. Someone that asks for help is strong too, man. Stop this thing of saying I'll come back a stronger person. Con. As I said earlier on, that we are all battling with problems, that it's one. That's why I always encourage dialogues, that once you sit down with someone, that's why you get to speak with, hey, I think I have problems, but I don't really have problems. But that guy there, that brother there, that sister there, I have problems. Con. They are taller than Mount Everest, That's why I'm encouraging you, if you are not someone who actually opens up a lot, just find a stranger, man, and just have a conversation, and talk about maybe an experience that you've been keeping to yourself, and see after doing that how you feel. As I said, that never be afraid to seek help. But apart from that, guys, until next time, this has been Real Talk with AK, social media segments editions, And this episode, I'm gonna do it live again on YouTube on our podcast channel, and I'm gonna invite a guest. So you can go subscribe there, join our community, and join us on our journey of seeking practical solutions. Because Bati, Maspambene aina wait. That's a statement Estanda Umatala original, a timer from Maikasi, who's a Kwaito artist, also to the timer. I have big respect for the timer, because like sometimes his statements, they leave you feeling somehow. As I said, in most cases we are going through a lot. So sometimes when you hear my timer talking and encouraging you to keep on pushing, yeah, you feel like you're not alone. But apart from that, guys, it's been dope. It's your boy AK about to sign out. Please stay strong, stay connected, and remember, mental health is health. We are in this together. So if there's no questions or anything, I'll be signing out in about 2 minutes. In the meantime, I'll wait to take questions, or if there's anyone who actually want to contribute to this evening's dialogue or episode, you can just request and then I'll add you on the space, and then we can have like maybe a quick mini dialogue. Like, that's the question. How do we break the stigma in our neighborhoods surrounding mental health, that when someone talks about their mental health struggles, they are labeled as weak or crazy? So that's the question I'm laying on the table before I sign up, because yeah, I've been talking since 6 p.m., 2 hours. I think that's the first time I actually crossed beyond 1 hour, because usually these sessions I keep them under a maximum of 1 hour. So like, how do you cope with stress? Like, what do you do when you feel stressed? And how do we also break that stigma surrounding mental health in our communities? Feel free to request to join as a guest. Let's unpack this, like, especially in the townships, because I feel like once we do that, we might see a decline in maybe the usage of illegal substances, because drugs are killing people in our neighborhoods. So let's talk about it. So as I said, that I'll just be waiting for people to join into the space in the next 5 minutes as the track is playing. So if you wanna join, you can just request. Let's unpack this wonderful topic of mental health, because when we talk about it together, we can go beyond and find practical solutions, long-term solutions that work. Because we don't have even the mental health facilities. I don't even want to talk about rehab centers in our neighborhoods. So how do we go about creating those spaces? So that's what the conversation has been around, this evening, mental health matters. We were talking about the invisible struggles of our youth. Because majority of our youth, so I see that Miss Pulane Kapa has joined the space. Good evening, Miss Pulane Kapa.
Good evening, minjano.
Ikona minjani na?
Ngipfukile.
So avusikwini bya namuntlha hi vulavula hi mental health, ku how can we break that stigma in our townships of saying when someone talk about their mental health struggles, they are labeled as crazy, ku munhu wa penga, a va kahle, they are weak.
Unfortunately, it's in our hands as individuals to make sure we fight this thing of mental health awareness. We can try, me and you, to say, yeah, we can try to change people, the world, but we can't. If one is dedicated to fight it, must be ready emotionally, be ready to talk, because surely alone you can never do it. You must surround yourself with people whom you see that they add value to your life, and they are very much supportive. Like myself, I can say I'm staying with my siblings.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm feeling stressed, like I do share with them. And even my colleagues, there are those you can there'll be those who that you know
Yes.
that these ones, when I'm surrounded by, when I'm with them, they build me, they make me push for something better, for me to uplift myself. So you must choose your surroundings as well, and talk more, because talk heals. Even though some other people, you can share your story with them, and then they go around and make fun stories. Bahleka. Um, for me, I take it to, okay, I told you my story. You are going around laughing about it. Tomorrow, the very same story that I was going through, it might be you.
Yeah, hey,
And,
that's true.
and I cope with music. Your music helps my soul. We love dancing with my siblings and my daughters. I have two daughters. I'm staying with my two siblings.
Yeah.
So hi rhandza ku cina. Futhi loko ku ri ta le Gaza to a na ha vuli. Even the bolo house music, yo, yani. So it makes my life more simple, easier, because I have a good supporting structure and music as well.
Yeah, like yeah, that's a healthy coping mechanism, because like futhi ka society leyi hi nga ka yona, it's very rare ku i kuma ku we use such activities to cope with stress. We tend to look for substances or yeah, tiphabini, just to escape, So like
Mm.
my follow-up question i ku yona ke, how do we go about bringing that sense of community for us, because of like I think as you highlighted that colleagues and the people that you surround yourself with are the structures, so how can we create that community that actually accommodates everyone, because like I think loko mi swi vona loko hi kula eminkarhini yo tala we had those spaces whereby you could connect with different individuals, people you did not know, and then mi
Yeah.
kuma ku loko mi vulavula so that's where now you find that, oh, this person is going through the same thing I'm going through. I think most of our friendships, that's how they were formed in most cases, trauma bonding, so how do we go about creating that sense of structure, support structure, as a community?
as a community, ish, ni nga ku yini? Um, distractly. Mina myself. Let me talk about myself more. I'm involved in community works.
Yeah.
I am a queen as well, the face of Queens with Purple South Africa,
Abash.
2024, and Public Choice Award winner. So me, I do a lot of community works, involve myself, Kuri, in whatever, because I know a lot of people are going through a lot, especially those that I'm advocating for. I advocate for people with disability.
Yeah.
We can say we go under a lot of stress, mental health, and stuff, but that section that I just mentioned, they go
Yeah.
through the most because some people they don't understand them and they don't even want to give a chance to understand them. Actually, in fact, they are naming them, body shaming them, saying
Mm.
whatever negative, but it's because they don't have much knowledge and they don't want to give themselves time. If you can just take few minutes of your day or an hour maybe, visit the NPOs, those organizations that deals with people with disability, and go there just to see what they do. You By doing that, you'll change people perception or how they think about people with disability. Again, I also work at a special school at Itireleng School for SID.
Yeah.
Yeah, there I'm pushing because I work a lot with children that are involved in sports. I'm a coach. We go out of Gauteng province to other provinces to participate, and we come back victorious. We come back with the medals.
Mm.
So I want the world to know that disability is not inability.
Mm.
So there are lots and lots of things to do to keep ourselves active in the community, to run away from the substances, because when you are busy, when you commit yourself, you won't have much time to socialize with the people that you can see kuri ku hava future la. You'll surround
Yeah.
yourself with people so that you gain more knowledge. You me I ni huma makaya Limpopo le ubulobedu. So
Mm.
at first I never thought I can be where I am right now. But nte loko ni fika Joni langutisa and look at my peers. Some they're driving, some they have
Yeah.
their
Hey.
own houses. They are they are up there, they are thriving, man. Look, let me just try. I can also do it. And you need to forget about where you come from, because if you can focus to say, man, poverty, I can never do this, you can, as long as you set your mind on that.
Mm.
Yeah, as I'm talking to you, Anri, I went to Nigeria to represent South Africa in pageant. I was
Wow.
competing on international stage. Whoever thought, even myself, I never thought I can do that. But
Yeah.
because of the people that I associated myself with, anzanga ni langutisa na lani vuya ku ni ku hi lava va ta ni kholela because they have this, I don't have this. I learned from them. I listened. I asked. That's why namuntlha laniwana, I feel like I've achieved a lot of things that I wanted to achieve. Hey, handle ka mali man. Hikwava
Eh.
mali ya ala.
Yeah. No. Serious economy ayikho mate washing. And you
Yeah,
know,
but
yeah, you can say you can still continue as
yeah,
you're
but
saying.
what I wanted to say is that ka swin'wani everything that I said, I want to do this. I I was even doing background acting, just that now I'm overcommitted, and even at work, um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm no longer doing much of the background acting, but I've been to Skim Sam, I've been to Gomorrah, I've been to the river, I've been to there's this Kasim movie
Yeah.
uh, called Ke Bona Lerato. Sometimes when I'm just sitting, people are sending me screenshots to say, "Hey, we just saw you on TV." And shinanze kanjani. By that time, if you those who know me, they know that my background, yeah, it was not nice. Kule
Mm.
kubaba, but that doesn't define who I am today, and it doesn't define my future. Ngoba
Mm.
kuri, you must never forget where you come from.
Mm.
Someone borila sitting at the corners to say, yeah, South Africa, there's no job, yeah, there's no that. But the organizations are here. You can just go there, volunteer. One day of the good days, you don't know the good that might come from that volunteering.
Yeah, I so. Cause there's this statement lexi va xi rhandzaka ngopfu kambe xi ri yini. I think it's a scripture. An
Mm,
idle mind, it's a dangerous mind.
mm,
So it starts there, in most cases because of, in summary of what they are trying to say, Eku, as young people, you can only blame your background to a certain point in life. But there's a
mm,
certain point where you need to be like, okay, now this is my life. I need to think about the future. I need to, okay, maybe to participate, keep my mind busy, active, in order
mm,
not to be looking for other negative ways of escaping. As you are saying that for you, you even ended up being in Nigeria. And I
mm,
just want to say congratulations for that, because I know that you are also from Kagiso, and our own hood has this thing of not celebrating people who are actually doing positive things in our community.
mm.
So like, how has that affected you as Mkambula ku mali mabona, like that lack of support from your own neighborhood, how does it affect you mentally at the end of the day? Because I know ku sometimes it does go, my own people, a place where I'm from, they are not
Mm,
even giving me recognition, my flowers.
mm. Sometimes when you take the negative and turning it to the positive, it really helps.
Mm.
For me, those who are not supporting, those that I say, Kori, um, okay, my people from Kasimo, Mogutuang, they're not supporting. It actually pushes me to even do more,
Mm.
because there are those who appreciate the little that I do.
Mm.
And maybe if they were praising me a lot, those who are surrounding me, those who are closer to me, maybe I was going to relax to say, I've done it, man. Nifikini la nako. But ningakuyini,
Mhm.
uh the more you achieve, the more other people celebrate you. Van'wani va jika va endla ngaku they were supporting you all along.
Yeah, that's true.
So the more they turn a blind eye, like ngaku a va ni voni, the more I'm pushing. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
when people there's this song ya Zozo a ni tivi ku ri ma yi tiva na, va jiya dula va li posa madini va khuri va khou li vhulaya. Mathina
Yeah.
a vha ḓivhi ndi hone na tshila hone. Uri they was it Dozo Mchangani? Swa ku va teke mirhi yini khidula i yini khidula hi Xitsonga.
It can
They
be
took a
chinkidula.
frog. They took a frog and throw it inside the water, thinking that it will drown and die. They
Oh,
didn't
oh.
know kuri yi huma koho matini. It
Mhm.
can live underwater.
Yeah, that's true. I think when it comes to that, we have the same mindset of saying, "Go." Even though someone might not be supporting, your lack
Mm,
of support, it's what fuels me to do more. And I think in a way that's trauma, because of we are constantly trying to prove that even though you are not supporting me, I can
mm,
still do this. So personally, I feel
yes,
like in most cases, we end up not doing things because we want to do them for ourselves. We
mm,
suppose to be proving that even though you are not looking, I can still do it. So that's
mm,
also something that you might find shall contribute to our mental health issues.
yes.
It was just something I thought Kunzena should highlight. So I heard you talking about volunteering your time to Kambe Engine, the School of Disability, Tirilingane, School of
Mm,
the Disabled. So like being exposed to that kind of environment, whereby a different, you
mm.
know, how has that affected you mentally? Like, what kind of perspective has that given you when it comes to life in most cases, like the outlook you have in life from being exposed to such spaces? Because we live in a society whereby vana so or grown-ups who are like that bajajiwa, samba abusiwa because of parents feel like kumbeshani iti mistake kumbe xikwembu xa va punicha.
Mm. For me, that's my happy place. It is my happy place. I am a mother to a child with disability,
Yeah.
and that plus platform, it really, it taught me a lot. Couldn't understand fully about the difference of disability. Van'wani, we are very not living. Living is not. I have I pfumeli futhi loko va ta va ku living va ta ni kwatela. Van'wani we have the disability, but we have no idea swa ku it's a disability.
Mm,
Understand? Loko u vulavula hi disability, most people they are looking at the physical appearance, not knowing ku ri ku na mavabyi ya ku fana na dyslexia, ku ri munhu a va right like physically. Na loko a vulavula, u vulavula, that person talks sense. But when you give that person a book and a pen to write or to read, they can't.
mm,
Understand? So there are lots of disabilities that I've learned, and it gave me a platform because I am a mother to
mm,
teach people about disability. You understand?
mm,
Like the knowledge that I've collected there in Punini ka the pageant that I'm partaking in. For me
yeah.
to be the first runner-up of Face of Queens with Purpose, it was because I was advocating for people with disability, and
Mm,
I'm not doing it like yeah, no. I'm practicing what I do because I am also a chairperson of an NPO based here in Extension 12 by the name of L17 Skills Development Hub. And
mm,
I'm also a public relations and marketing director of Nomfundo Zondo Foundation that caring for children with disability. And for me working there with those people, it gave me I was the public choice award winner
mm.
because people can see what I do.
Sorry about that. I just hate to
No, thank you. Thank you.
me busy too much. I think we need I think we need more people in society like you.
Thank you.
So
There's surroundings. If very uh choose your friends,
mm,
then I'll show you your future.
mm.
The people that I surround myself with, and I'm so grateful, and I will forever be grateful to God for bringing those people into my life.
Mm,
Where I'm so blessed.
mm.
I
Good one
am
to
so
that.
blessed. Yes. Yeah. So I even lost the track where I was.
I were talking about how blessed you are, waking around that kind of environment. But
Yeah. Okay. We're talking about working at that environment to say it's a happy place for me because it granted me an opportunity to understand my daughter even more, um, and to be their word of mouth because some they cannot talk for themselves. And
mm,
so for me, looking at their situations, and I can relate, and it's easier for me to talk to people, or even the parents that are still struggling to understand
mm,
their children. They're still struggling to accept the situation. So it becomes easy for me to go there to their level because I was once there.
mm,
I was once at a stage whereby I couldn't understand my daughter, the frustrations,
mm,
and I felt like, Shkwembu, what did I do wrong? Why me? Why that? But now I know, um, everything happens for a reason. There was
mm,
a purpose for me to have this blessing in my life.
mm,
Loko ni langutisa ka vutomi bya mehe, a ni swi
mm,
tivi ku ri a ni ta va ni ri kwini if it was not for my daughter. I've really achieved, we really achieved a lot in this journey.
mm. You
Yeah.
know,
Now I have a name. Loko ni fika ka tindhawu tin'wani, even at home, it's like yo. Sometimes I even ask myself that is it really me? Are these people cheering for me? I even forget that even my bank balance is zero. Yeah, because of that. So if it was not for Itireleng, if it was not for L17 Skill Development Hub, if it was not for Nomfundo Zondo Foundation, and these sectors that I talked about,
mm,
they have a common thing. People with disability, they also want to show the world that disability is not inability.
mm.
They also improve.
Repeat that again. Sorry, sorry. Hey, my Zaya at the court. Hey,
From Queenie.
I I think you just dropped the quote. You just dropped some wisdom on disability not being.
Oh, disability is not inability.
Oh yeah, hi, that's a
Yeah,
powerful statement.
they are all promoting inclusion.
Mm. So
Yeah.
you know, I just wanna say, like, please may God continue empowering you to change more lives out there. Bringing
Amen.
change to those kind of communities. But before I actually let you go, I just
Mm,
have two more questions. I just have two more questions. So, since you were someone who volunteered at Itirileng, and you were around teachers firsthand, because earlier on when I was actually doing this whole live, because I've been live I think for about 1 hour 30 minutes now, so
mm.
I did raise a question of asking to the listeners and viewers, cool. Don't you think that our teachers should also be trained in terms of psychology? Like when someone studies teaching, whether it's FET or from preschool, primary to high school, psychological studies should actually be compulsory. Like, what's your take on that? Don't you think like maybe we will actually have maybe a society that actually addresses mental health issues?
Yeah, I think uh we really need that, so that when one enters, any school, whether it's a special school or it's a mainstream,
Mm.
mental health issues hit hard. And sometimes that's why we have bullies at school, ne?
Yeah.
And you find that some teachers, they don't know how to handle them, because they lack that information yaleyo. They lack that training, ku va va trainiwa ku ri, how to deal with such mental health and situations, because na vana na vo va stresseka. You might find ku ri someone passed away
Mm.
in that family, and that child was very much close to that person. So
Mm.
a nga swi tivi ku ri a dealisa ku yini with that grief, and start to be aggressive.
Yeah,
Or
that's true.
maybe parents are going through a divorce, ne? It really affect children. Almost n'wana na yena u sungula ku va otherwise exikolweni,
Mm.
back chat teachers. So with the training, I think the fights that we see between teachers and the learners, there'll be a less,
Mhm.
like now, because we see blood at school. Ku halaka ngati.
Mm.
These kids are stabbing each other, stabbing teachers. Things are happening.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
enough with kule around those kind of environments, because of, if you check up to date, scholars like our schools don't actually have like those support systems.
Mm.
But now I just wanted to know, like, for you in terms of your journey, because I blah blah mental health. As I did say,
Yeah.
I had two last more questions, because you did mention you are involved in a lot of different work, especially work that actually contributes to the Makata mental health.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know if there's someone listening right now, maybe they might need to get in touch with you. What's the best way to get in touch with you? And I think we are overdue for an episode on the podcast.
Okay. They can follow me on Facebook. On my Facebook account is Pulane Kapa,
Mm.
and then they can also follow me on Instagram. Account is Pulane Kapa as well. I do answer my inbox.
Oh,
Uh,
I'm blue ticky ball.
even I know I don't blue tick. In the blue tick, I logo no dog the conversation. I fambelane na swona
Oh, you
leswi.
did got this. So
Yeah, yeah, but when it's work related, no, I do check my inboxes, because
Mm.
the line of work that I do, some they'll be texting to say, how do we join pageant? How do we do this? I have a disabled child. Where do I go? So I'm
Mm.
always available to answer questions or to give information. Um, that I have. If I don't have that kind of information, I do refer to the relevant people to
Mm.
help. Yeah. So
Mm.
Facebook, Pulane Kapa, Instagram, Pulane Kapa, and also here on TikTok, Pulane Kapa.
Our Miss Queens of Purpose.
Yeah, the face of Queens with Purpose South Africa. The one and only 2024. There'll never be other.
Yeah, okay. So, I usually have like this trick question that I ask, to people who join my spaces or who appear as guests on podcast. And this is usually the last question, my last question. I know kwe kalen kanuku ya my last one. So let's say you wake up and you are made the minister of Gambenjen, social development and health. What's that one thing you will do differently if you were the Minister of Social Development and Health? Yeah, yona niyibeke kahle ne?
Yes. Um, I'll make sure Kuri, all the organizations that have relevant papers are being funded, because funding is a big challenge to them, and some they cannot function without being funded. They need va ri va nida swilo swa ku tirha hi swoho ku ri va ya mahlweni. Yes, and without funds, it's tough. The first thing that I'll do, those who have relevant papers, I'll
Yeah.
fund them. Yeah.
No, engeni ngamikhiphi Miss Pulane wabona. I just wanna say thank you for joining the space. You know, na mina se namaphundi aba wawona khale nikhani vulavula. So
Okay.
I just want to say thank you so much for actually taking the time, you know, to engage with me on this important topic, because I personally believe that, you know, as you said, that you are someone who's practical. It's
Yeah.
only through practical solutions whereby we can address these kind of issues that we are faced with in our communities. Because of Lokomeshubona, I think most of our friends, they are using the illegal substances hikutala some banwa ngopfu mabyala because of they are trying to escape that. Because now earlier on I did ask a question, yo kahle kahle ni celebrate yini, what are we actually celebrating that every weekend ile mabyaleni, you know, ile mabyaleni kusona. So I just want to say thank you so much, you know, for taking the time, and Xikwembu xi mi katekisa to continue, you know, being that positive beam of light, you know, in our community and beyond, you know.
Amen.
Nkense ngopfu sisi wa mina.
Ku khensa meni, khensa swinene. Thank you for accepting my request.
Yeah, thank you so much for actually taking the time. Kenza mina kusani vulavula ni ri wexe hleketa 1 hour 30 minutes.
Askisi.
Ay.
Loko a ni va ni joined live earlier, maybe I could have joined you from the beginning. So I had an event. Actually, we had an event as Nomfundo Zondo Foundation
Yeah.
today in Faneville to raise awareness on uh, disability.
Yeah, you should
And
actually
and
invite me.
and you know what? The attendance was very much poor. Like we do have parents of children with disabilities, Swaneville, but it was only a few people, so they didn't attend. And hala vale ku rileni ku ri hey vana hey this, and they are also crying ku ri vanhu va treat-a vana va vo bad. But we have this platform. We sungule Mansonville in February.
Yeah.
In March, we were in Extension 12 Community Hall. In April, we decided to skip because our month are busy. The festive
Holiday.
Easter holidays. So you could know we will continue in May, and also next month we are going to 2 and 3. We'll be at 2 and 3 all, but we haven't decided of the date yet. So we are going around West Rand, raising awareness on disability as Nomfundo Zondo Foundation. So I call in Ngabuye.
Na mit and the mabona kupula. So I think Mitlemin make a last question in one, because you actually highlighted something, you know, in terms of
Yeah.
the event go. The attendance was actually poor, you know. So like how can we get like members of community to actually attend this kind of spaces? Because I think Namina, it's a problem that I had when I started the space of Machitari Kaufela dialogue sessions. I think the first 3 sessions it was only like 5 of us, you know. So like how do we make this kind of spaces go tiba bigger? How do we grow them, you know? Because I know go just as much as we are seeing the problem go attendance, it's not there, and you are someone that's practical, you can also see the solution maybe, and maybe the solution might need us as a collective to come together, you know.
I think by not giving up, keep on chasing the very same dream, the very same advocacy that one started with, and never change to say because people are not supporting this, I'm now changing, going to another thing. I believe Guru, one day of the good days, because anything happens for a reason, there's a purpose. So eventually they will attend, they will support. And now just keep on pushing. And
Okay.
because people are not supporting.
Ah,
Some they do see, and some they will try to copy. But because we don't have the same passion, we don't have the same love for what we do, some they will not succeed, but some maybe they will succeed. But let's keep the eye on the goal. Let's not let's push. One day of the good days ita humelela, and ku humelela no vula ku ri we will reach where we want to by raising this advocacy that we are on about.
nametwa Miss Pulane, you know. Kambe there's that kambe nje quote ingwane randa that always says, you know, you can give them the receipt, but the pot won't taste the same, you know.
Yes, true.
So
True that.
I don't know kuna cancer hi ndlela leyo mavona i nge ni mi tshika mi wisa mavona na tshemba ku mi ta va na weekend ya kahle. May you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I think it's time we actually have that episode on the podcast, you know, maybe continue this discussion on the actual episode, you know. Let's save more for the episode, you know.
Inko. Tlela kahle na n'we. Have a lovely weekend.
I can see.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that's the wrap for this evening, guys. I just want to say thank you to everyone that actually took the time to join the space, you know. I don't know if there's still anyone who still wants to keep me here, but I think for this evening I've reached my limit, you know. Hey, because I think it's almost 2 hours. So thank you once again to everyone who took their time, you know, to join us. If you were here from the beginning and you are still here, I just want to say I appreciate you so much. Ke le rata kaofela. It's your boy AK signing out. So that's it for this evening's topic, you know, as we're talking about Kambe Inchinileshwan, mental health matters 101, you know. So this is a weekly conversation, you know. So every week, at the end of the week, it can be Saturday, it can be Sunday or Friday, depending on the business, because I'm also employed. So depending on the level of fatigues, it can be between those 3 days whereby I come live on this platform called TikTok, and I actually talk about mental health, because this is a continuous discussion. We're not only supposed to talk about mental health when a celeb commits suicide, or when someone you know commits suicide and then after 2 weeks we forget. But apart from that, guys, Inko Mu, it's your boy signing out. Thank you so much. Danko. So that's the question. Like, how do we break the stigma surrounding mental health in townships? Because we have those situations whereby when you talk about what you are going through mentally, people tend to say that uyahlanya, you are weak, you are not strong. So that's the conversation that we've been on, for the last 1 hour, 30 minutes or so. I'm about to conclude for this evening. If there's not anyone who's willing to actually join us, because I've also reached my limit. So I think that's it for the evening, guys. Thank you so much to everyone who actually took the time to join the space. It's your boy. Don't forget to go and subscribe to our podcast. It's available on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and across all podcast streaming platforms. It's at the People Podcast Network. You can also go subscribe or follow our blog, and join our newsletter whereby we drop daily topics around societal issues, because at the end of the day, we are a podcast network that's actually focusing on addressing social issues or social challenges that exist within our communities, while also trying to find practical solutions for them. So you can just go and join us on our journey by subscribing, signing up for our newsletter. It actually goes a long way as we are still on that path, and as we continue to grow. But apart from everything, guys, it's your boy signing out. Sibonge, dango.